Yeah, it's me again. I'm gonna try to I don't know if I'll get through both things in one video. We'll see how it goes, but um I was gonna try to talk about well, what it actually means to be one with God or to be part of God, not in the sense of like, yes, I'm going to church and praying, I'm one with God. No, I mean like, how do you even come close to putting your brain in a space where you understand what it means to be of God? You are a facet of God consciousness, of, absolute consciousness. So try to go through that. And I may end up just doing it in another video while I'm sitting here talking about it. I want to talk about how you go through some of this introspective process, right? Like what that looks like. Maybe I wasn't really sure which one should come first, whether it would be better to give you some notion of how to really come to terms with being God, of God, right? Before we bother getting into then pursuing that realization. Or should I just start out with the other, right, practices and whatnot to get you moving and then worry about the second part after it? I'm not real sure. See, all of this I've done over the course of my lifetime has all been a very haphazard process, at least from my perspective, because there has never been a guide for me to follow or a framework. I haven't had any gurus or teachers, on this path. So there's not really a good plan of action. I don't have all this thought out. So sort of just going with what one thing leads me into, right? This one leads to that one, and that's kind of what we're doing. So I guess we'll start. You say, like I think in the last video I was talking about why you would even bother with any of this. And I guess maybe it's good to go a little further to help you understand the true value in who you are, or in what you are, in you. And then I'll get to the other, if I don't run out of time, or I'll make a whole nother thing about it. But the idea of being God, what does that mean? Being part of God, we float in God. You're not just like, well, I like we're God's, pinky finger or something. No, not like that. And some will suffer people say, I'm a cell in the body, like being a cell in God's body. Well, not either, because God doesn't have cells. He's not made of cells and pieces. He's, the closest you could get, in some ways, is the old way of presenting it. You are not a wave on the ocean. You are the ocean in a wave. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean in a drop. And all of these things are good, but they still kind of denote this sort of weird separation. In a sense, I could say, well, I'm a drop. Well, you're a drop, but you're the ocean. Are there drops in the ocean? Well, some of you are out there, yes, but there's little atoms and there's little molecules and they all move around and they do this and they do that. So you're still really sort of say, well, it's not like God is a collective. It's not a network. I know there's some to that. Well, consciousness is a network. Well, no, it's not. We interact with it sort of like one. I give you, you're a node, he's a node, she's a node, I'm a node, everybody's a node, right? But that's not how it actually works in for real's land. God is not going to be something that has pieces. He's not a collective or whole made out of smaller things. It's there's no outside. And that's the point, I guess. You think of particles and pieces and, waves or whatever. There's still that defining distance, right? Even down to the smallest particle, we think, oh, this is a solid thing. But it's made up of all these little particles, and they all just kind of have a little bit of a, bond, and it keeps them all kind of in place. Some are a little closer together and make certain kinds of things. Some are a little further apart, and, depending on what we're talking about, and all of that, even down to what we would think is solid, we're still dealing with divisionary properties. From this particle to that particle, right? Doesn't matter how close it is, even if it's an unthinkably small space, still space. When you ask a scientist to define space, you'll get some nonsense like it's the distance between things or the distance between particles. Well, what's in there? What's in that space? And what's in the distance? What's in between the particles? There's something. Because there's always something. There is no true void. There's no empty space. Nothing is actually empty. Because God is an absolute, which would mean there's nothing outside. There's nothing beyond. There's no border. There's no edge. You can't have distance, right? Because distance would denote separation. It's why time is not a real thing. It's because we've been convinced by whatever means makes you feel better. I don't care if you think we're born that way, or the aliens did it, or God did it, or the devil did it. It makes no difference to me. I don't care if you think it's just a weird quirk of evolutionary practice. Sorry, I had to smack something biting me, right? But the point is, of course, you believe in these separations. You believe in these edges, these borders, these boundaries. And that's where the idea of time comes from. Time, exists because of distance, and distance exists because of time. Time is the way that we basically describe distance or separation. So there's no actual separation, which would mean there's no actual time. This is all how we project our interaction within the self, right? So, what does that mean for you and your, God spark? The Christ spark, the Christ light that is in everybody. It means that these separations are all illusory between us. And it means that you are as valuable or important as anybody, and you are not more or less valuable or important than anybody, because we are all, aspects of the one thing, right? So that's why everything is part of God or within God, is because there's nothing outside of God. What would God make things out of? Well, he can't make them out of anything because there's nothing outside of him. So the only thing is within himself. Now, how do we conceptualize that? How do we come down and say, oh, what makes that kind of real to us? I'm going to do this kind of silly thing that I use sometimes to explain it to, I've done it for my kids, right? It works pretty good. So stop. Well, I mean, if you're driving or something, don't stop and don't close your eyes or anything like that, of course. But if you have it within you or you're in a place you can, it's just stop for a second. Maybe shut your eyes real quick. Just take a quick clearing, maybe one quick breath. And then I'm going to tell you something and you're going to imagine it. And I'm going to tell you to imagine a stick figure. Now, the first thing that pops in your head is what you're going to stay with. Anything that happened even immediately after the first thing, you throw out. You keep nothing but the original, nothing but the absolute first thing that you thought of when I said stick figure. Doesn't matter what it is. I don't care if you thought of something that had nothing to do with stick figures. You still keep whatever the first thing was. No matter what it looked like, doesn't matter what shape it was or any of that. First thing, anything that you secondarily thought with intent, especially, no, get rid of that. Now, you have your stick figure. You're going to give it hair. Now, the very first thing that popped up on your stick figure is what you're going to stay with. You're not going to change it. Any idea that you may have had, and you did, there at some part of you, as soon as something popped up, some part of you said, oh, wait, let's change it this way, or change it. Oh, I don't actually like that, or I don't like that color, or I don't like this. And, there's something you changed or tried to change almost as immediately as it popped in. But you can't have that. You need whatever the very first thing was, the absolute first thing. Now, this stick figure, is it you? Are you a stick figure? Well, no, you're not a stick figure. Well, then how is this stick figure there? Because it's your head. It's your head space, right? Right. So, the stick figure is you. But it's also itself, right? It is not you. And is not going to look like you because you are not made of solid black lines, right? So it's not you, but it's still, and it's still you and of you because it does not exist anywhere but within you, right? So it is made up of, that's right, can't guess, can you? It's made up of imagination, right? It's something that is floating around in that little visualization space in your head. Now, of course, some of you are out there, you're staunchly scientific. Oh, well, it's actually, this particular array of neurons firing in a particular fashion to create a sensation in the nervous system and blah, 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 blah. Except that scientists has no idea actually where these things come from and how it works. We don't know how. Not that, to say maybe they will someday. I don't know. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying at the current place they don't. And it's not a absolute analogous situation. But the idea holds. It's the point of it is you. There's no part of that stick figure that is not you. However, it is actually, you are not it, in the sense that you are not a stick figure yourself. You are not making a mirror image of yourself. You have made a different thing that is actually still you. You are not the totality of God in the sense that there is the absoluteness and you did everything and you can go around commanding people what to do and create planets and all that stuff. No. You are God 100% in you, functioning effectively as an independent, right? That little stick man can walk around in your head and you're not the one doing it. You're doing it, but is you're not walking. You can sit still and it can walk. It can function separate from you in that sense, but it's not really separate from you because it's still in your brain. Any attempt you made to override the first hairstyle for a new one would have been you imposing your will on the free will of your stick figure. Your stick figure picked its own hair, right? Did the stick figure choose itself from the beginning, or did you choose it? Is the stick figure conscious of itself? If it is, you know what I'm saying. I mean, this is kind of what we're dealing with. Is this? There's no part of you that is not of God. You are God, and God has no boundaries. God has no limits. So you cannot say that there's any much of God outside of me either, right? All of it. And separate in the sense of your notions in your head, this idea of separation that you carry. When you start to dissolve those beliefs of separation, those beliefs of distance, those beliefs of boundaries, you'll start to realize, not just intellectually, but realize in your total self, your intuitive self, your emotional self, your, the whole thing, right? Because there's a lot of ways you can know things in the sense, I shouldn't say no, you think or believe things intellectually. We actually know almost nothing because everything is pretty much a belief. But you may have an intellectual notion and understand a thing intellectually, or at least think you do. We often think we understand things because we have missed or did not see or conceive of a particular parameter that we didn't take into account. But you think these things, you believe these things, and they're not the same as knowing, right? And so having an understanding of all this doesn't mean you know it in you. You don't have that deep down, for lack of a better term, knowing and knowing. Now, of course, religious people will say, I know I'm dogging on religious people. It's kind of my thing, I guess, now. They'll say, I know this. It's because I know it. I know that I know because I was blind and now I see, and lost and found, and all of that jazz. Well, all that's a bunch of nonsense. You are blind because you have accepted blindness, and you are lost because you refuse to see the path. You have to know what you are. And too often, religion has obfuscated the nature of what man is and pursued emotional gratification, which is what so much of it is, and so much of what we believe in both worlds, in atheist, pagan, new age, religion, whatever. It's almost always comes back to something that is emotionally gratifying. We then attempt to intellectualize or rationalize in a defensive posture as a way of saying, no, I know it. I'm not just being emotional because I have all of these evidences that I'm going to hold up. And of course, every evidence you can produce is always going to be imperfect. It's going to be missing. There's going to be lack. There's going to be some parameter you missed. Right? And this includes the scientific world, new age world, religious world, whatever world you feel like coming from. Which is why you have to throw it all out. So this is what I'm talking about. You want to work towards the refinement of yourself to come to a grasp or understanding in such, as much as we can, that you are God stuff. Let's say that. You are God's stuff. You are as important as God is. And you say, oh my God, Mike, that's an egomaniacal thing. Well, no, because God is not egomaniacal. There's no ego in God. So the closer you get to accepting and realizing just how much of you is God spark, God life, God light, God whatever you want to say, the closer you will get to actualization and the totality of that. I'm going to say one more thing here. And that there was the last time about, 500 years ago, I ever went to a church. I had long since stopped going to the regular services for this place. The only reason I ever went near it was my mother was still alive at the time, and I would take her because she was sick and had had a hard time getting herself out a lot of times. So this one dude though ran a bookstore with a religious slant, we'll say, but a smart guy, and I got along with him very well. I liked him very much. He gave a little bit of a Sunday school class, for lack of a better term, that for a little while, but he would say his belief from all the scripture and everything that God's ultimate goal is to reconcile all of creation unto itself. He's trying to, his ultimate goal is that all things, all creation become reconciled back into the oneness of God, right? Now, oddly enough, that's the kind of thing you would get a lot of flack for at this particular place. But, at the time, I was like, yeah, that's what I'm saying, it's not even just a reconciliation in the sense that God has to do it. It's that we are coming back to the knowledge or the knowing, like true knowing, gnosis, the gnosis of being, of God, being in God, being of God, God, right? And that realization is a kind of reconciliation. I do not think true spiritual refinement comes any other way. And the only way to get there is through your self-awareness and your consciousness, as we say. I think that's a blah term. It doesn't really, we use it so haphazardly for so many random things, really, but you know what I mean. The only way is through your self-awareness, because there's nothing else that you have been partitioned to impact. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Probably not. Anyway, all right. I'll get back to you.